What are you talking about? Coffee is the most important meal of the day. This week has been an emotional roller coaster. We've had a client project that seemed insurmountable. And then, late one night when I was preparing to grab my passport and go hide out in Mexico, it came to me. I found the Reddit thread. I found the resource that I needed. This was the solution that was going to solve everything. I found SSHFS. Okay, so let's lay out the problem. The problem is we have a web portal that needs access to hundreds of thousands of photos. What's the problem with that? Hundreds of thousands of photos becomes prohibitively large to store on a production web server. Cloud storage, while cheap, at this point gets to be an actual cost that's going to be costing real dollars, especially when these photos don't need to be accessed every day, and they don't all need to be accessed, and certainly not at the same time. So we need to store these photos someplace on premises, in an office. The first solution is we just move the entire web portal into the office. Problem here, of course, is that then our web portal starts to degrade performance. You can't access it, clients can't all log on to it at the same time. We start to bog down the network. That's not a great solution. So the web portal part still needs to stay in the cloud, but the photos need to be on premises. How do we connect these two? Enter SSHFS. I'll give away the ending. In a nutshell, if you can SSH to a storage repository, you can have that as a directory on your web server. Let me show you how it works. It's super cool. So the test that I'm going to show you this with is as follows. We got a VM on our dev stack here that we're going to use as our web server. So we're going to SSH into our web server. So we're in our web server here. This has the IP address 207. So if we go and look here, okay, so we see we've got the default Apache index file in here. Let's, for the purposes of demonstration, and get rid of that file. Get rid of that. Okay, so now we go here with it. We've got a list of all of the files in our root website. Now, we need, for the sake of this demonstration, we need there to be all kinds of pictures. We need this accessing files on a totally different server. This is where the magic happens. So we're going to install SSHFS. It comes with every Linux distro out there. So all we have to do, apt install SSHFS, like that. Finds it. Okay, away we go. So we've got SSHFS all installed. And we've got an empty directory that we need to connect to a remote storage server. So to get into this, I'll word SSHFS. We're going to put some options here that we need. Allow other, comma, default permissions. And that will just help to reconcile the different permissions between the two directories. We're going to user at our host, colon, our mount point, where we want it locally to be going to. And just like that, we should be connected. And if we go here to our root, we look at that. We have now a full directory of our storage server on the remote server. We want these files to be accessible to our web server. They're on our local storage server, but because of SSHFS, our web server has tunneled through to the storage server and retrieved the directory and access to those files remotely. So I've just copied those over. We're going to go back and take a look at the contents of that directory, and if I refresh, all of our files are available to us to use on our web pages. Magical. Now, of course, this is all local within our lab, and if you're doing it between a web server in the cloud and a local storage server in your office, you're going to want to do things like obscure your SSH port, definitely harden your SSH users, harden the file permissions, lock down the firewall rules, all of the traditional security things, but this is a super easy way to access remote file systems. So I will make note that this is an appropriate solution when you've got files that need to be included in the web server that aren't going to be accessed necessarily often, frequently, and need a large amount of bandwidth to retrieve, but you need a large amount of storage space. This solution fits that to a T. And with that, I feel like we've learned by diding. See you next week. We've had a... This week's been an emotional roller coaster. Didn't realize that was the end of my sentence.